harm him. The first interpretation is that what it means is that you shouldn't allow, basically, they used to have a practice in the days of Jahiliyyah, the Arabs, that if someone kills someone, they will come and kill his father and his male relatives. And Islam abolished this practice. No one is responsible for the crimes of others. لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No human being should shoulder the sins of others. So either this is what it means, you don't harm him, and he should not harm you, in the sense that you shouldn't be harmed because of him. Right? The other interpretation, the scholars say, what is meant here is that when the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يجني عليك, he should not harm you, meaning when he grows up. He should not do harm to you, rather, he has to do birrul walidain. And you don't harm him in the sense that while he's young, do not neglect his tarbiyah. Teach him what he needs to know. And so in this, we see the importance, the importance of, taking care of our children and their need for the proper tarbiyah before taking care of their physical needs and material needs in this dunya. And usually those children who, when they grow up, they harm their parents, it's usually because their parents neglected them when they were young. That's how it usually is. You neglect them when they're young, they will neglect you when you become older. As they say, al-jaza'u min jins al-amal. That what goes around comes around. And what you reap, you sow. Or what you sow, you reap. What you sow, you reap. What you put in the ground of seeds, that is what you're going to reap. Here he says, the companion says, and I saw his white hair, it was reddish. Now, Imam al-Tirmidhi, he comments on this hadith, قال أبو عيسى, Abu Isa is who? Imam al-Tirmidhi. He said, قال أبو عيسى هذا أحسن شيء روي في هذا الباب وأفسر لأن الروايات الصحيحة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يبلغ الشيب وأبو رمثة اسمه رفاعة ibn يثرب أتي. Imam al-Tirmidhi, the author of this book, he says that this is the best thing that has reached us regarding the dyeing of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because all the other authentic narrations, they tell us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't need to dye his hair. So as if he's saying that perhaps that was true, and this hadith is either weak or it's not explicit enough. Right? This companion did not say the Prophet ﷺ dyed his hair. All he said is that I saw his white hair was reddish. Now, why was it reddish? We explained that. It could be because of oil, it could be because of perfume, right? All the other narrations that explicitly say, dyeing, they're not authentic. They are not authentic. The next hadith is Imam al-Tirmidhi says, it's a hadith of Abu Hurairah. Now, let's look at the chain here, because it's important for us to look at this chain. The one narrating from Abu Hurairah is Uthman ibn Mawhab. The one narrating from him is Sharik al-Qadi. Now this individual, Sharik, he was a scholar, but he had a very poor memory. And that affects the credibility of the narrator. Scholars of hadith, they consider someone whose memory to be weak to not be a reliable narrator. That's one of the reasons for the hadith to be weak. Alright? Sharik narrates from Uthman ibn Mawhab, and he says, Abu Hurairah narrated the following. Or, سئل أبو هريرة رضي الله عنه هل خضب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ قال نعم. Did Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم dye his hair? Abu Hurairah said, yes. قال أبو عيسى وروى أبو عوانة هذا الحديث عن عثمان بن عبد الله بن موهب فقال عن أم سلمة. So Imam al-Tirmidhi, right after mentioning this, he says another narrator from another chain, okay, narrates the same hadith, but instead of Sharik is not the one narrating, it's Abu Awana, a reliable narrator. He narrates from Uthman ibn Abdullah, but he says, who was asked? Not Abu Hurairah. Salama was asked. The point of mentioning this is that this narration that Abu Hurairah was the one who was asked is weak. Because of this narrator, Sharik. He's not reliable, and he went against all the credible, reliable narrations. All the other narrations say that it was Salama, the wife of the Prophet who was asked this question. And the other narrations actually mention that Salama, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is actually in Bukhari. It says that this same Uthman ibn Mawhab, he was young. He says, my family sent me to Salama because I was sick. And Salama used to have a container. In this container were a few hairs of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What would she do with it? She would use it for barakah. Whenever someone would have the evil eye or magic or something, they would come to her. She would put water in that container and they would drink it. And they would get cured from the barakah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this narrator, Uthman, he says, I went and I was given, he says, and I looked into the container and I saw red hairs. So this is the authentic narration, and he says he saw red hairs, right? The point is that he just says he saw red hair, right? As for the narration of Abu Hurairah, that is weak, that says what? Abu Hurairah was asked, did the Prophet ﷺ used to dye? He said yes. That's not authentic, right? Again, all we know is that the Prophet ﷺ had some hairs that became red. Why? Allah knows best. Why did they become reddish? Allah knows best. Anyways, a point about the hair of the Prophet ﷺ and how Salama kept it. There's nothing wrong with this. The companions in the life of the Prophet ﷺ would, attempt to get barakah from his body when he would make wudu. Whatever water that he would use and it would fall off of him, they would race to catch it, to do wudu from that same water, because it touched the body of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after his death, the same thing, hair or anything that was left over, his clothing, etc., that touched his body, the companions would use it. And this continued, it got passed down. And, it got passed down until, many generations. Imam Ahmed, it is said that Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, he had, I believe it was a few hairs of the Prophet ﷺ in his possession, and he said that I want these hairs to be buried with me, to be placed on my eyes and to be buried with me. And his will was executed, and they did that for him. And there are many other stories like this. But now, many centuries later, Imam al-Dhahabi lived in the 7th or 8th century. We're talking about some 700 years ago. Imam al-Dhahabi says that anything that is claimed today to exist from whatever was left over, artifacts and hair, etc., of the Prophet ﷺ, none of it can be authentically attributed to be real. None of it can be authentically attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. Whoever says that he has something from the Prophet ﷺ, it's fake, it's not real, it cannot be verified. So if this is what he said 700 years ago, then how about today? People claim that we have, certain artifacts from the Prophet ﷺ in this museum or that museum. None of it can be authentically verified. The next hadith is the next hadith is the hadith of Al-Jahdana, a female narrator. امرأة بشير ابن الخصاصية قالت: أنا رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخرج من بيته ينفض رأسه وقد اغتسل وبرأسه ردع من حناء أو قال ردغ، شك في هذا الشيخ. This female companion says that I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam coming out of his house, and his hair was dripping with water. He had just performed ghusl. And so hair was dripping from his hair. Water was dripping from his hair. And there was traces of hinna, dye, in his hair. Now, Imam al-Tirmidhi says, my sheikh, he was not sure if she said it was traces of dye, hinna, or radghun, which means perfume. So that's what this hadith tells us. And again, nothing is explicit here, as you can see. Nothing is explicit. We don't know whether it was dye or whether it was perfume. And also, this hadith is considered weak. This hadith is not considered authentic. And Imam al-Tirmidhi is the only one who narrated it. The next hadith is the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, قال رأيت شعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مخضوبا رأيت شعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مخضوبا. He says, I saw the hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that it was dyed. That it was dyed. I saw the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam having been dyed. So this is very explicit. Anas is saying he saw that the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was dyed. And this hadith is considered Hasan, not Sahih, but Hasan, to be an okay narration. And the same narrator who narrated from Anas, he says in another narration, رأيت شعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عند أنس ابن مالك مخضوبا. رأيت شعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عند أنس ابن مالك مخضوبا. The narrator from Anas, the next hadith, he says that I saw the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not a companion. This is a tabi'i who's narrating from Anas. He says, I went to meet Anas and I saw Anas had some of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and I saw it was dyed. It was dyed. Again, it could have been dyed. If he saw that it was not white and it was reddish or brown, it could have been dyed, or it could have been as a result of perfume, as we mentioned earlier. And Allah knows best. So this is what we can say regarding all of these narrations. We put them together, and this is the conclusion we come to, that basically, number one, the Prophet ﷺ did not have that much hair that needed to be dyed. He only had a handful of white hair here and there. So it wasn't like someone who's, all of his hair or most of it is white, that it requires dyeing. Number two, what we have are narrations that are telling us that whatever white hair did exist, at times it was reddish or brownish. So why was that? We don't have anything explicit where a companion is saying, I saw the Prophet ﷺ dyeing his hair. Right? We don't have that. And if that was the case, we would have Ummahatul Mu'mineen, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, who would have definitely not missed that out. Right? Living in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, if the Prophet ﷺ ever did that, if he ever dyed his hair, they would have narrated it to us. They would have narrated it to us. They narrated a lot of other things from his personal life, so why would they miss out on that? But we can say the possibility still exists. Maybe once in his life he did it. Right? That possibility does exist. Right? But the possibility that he didn't also exist. So Allah knows best. All right. We're going to move on to the next chapter. We just have a few hadith. And this is باب ما جاء في كحل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. What has been mentioned regarding the kuhl that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would use. Kuhl refers to the eyeliners, where you put black or red into your eye to change the color. Now, what is the ruling of doing this? As we'll see from these narrations, the Prophet ﷺ would do it, and he would encourage doing it. Now, in this day and age, people look at it as being something that only women do. But as we will see from the ahadith, the only purpose of this is not for beautification. That is not the only purpose of doing this. Yes, that is one of the objectives and purposes of doing it. But as we're going to see from these narrations, there are other benefits of doing it. Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions in At-Tibb al-Nabawi, the prophetic medicine, he says, Kuhl protects the health of the eyes and gives strength and clarity of vision, and it cleans the eyes of any bad substances. In addition to that, some types of kuhl also serve as an adornment, as beautification. And if it is applied before going to bed, then this is even better. And al-ithmid is more effective than any other type of kuhl. Ithmid is more effective than any other type of kuhl, as we're going to see from the narrations. So we have the first hadith. The first hadith is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال اكتحلوا بالإثمد فإنه يجلو البصر وينبت الشعر. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, use the ithmid. This is a type of kuhl. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying here, use it to apply to the eyes because it clears the vision and it makes the eyelashes to grow. It clears the vision and it causes the eyelashes to grow. Then Ibn Abbas says, وزعم أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كانت له وزعم أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كانت له مكحلة يكتحل منها كل ليلة ثلاثة في هذه وثلاثة في هذه. Now this part of the narration is weak. Okay, the first part that we just mentioned, this is authentic, and we're going to see this has been mentioned in all the narrations that are going to come, where the Prophet ﷺ says, use ithmid because it strengthens the vision and it clears the vision and it causes the eyelashes to grow. All the other ahadith are going to mention this, right? So that means, when you have several different narrations mentioning the same thing, even if one is weak, altogether they come up to the level of Hasan, right? But this part where Ibn Abbas says, right, this part is weak. This part is weak. He says, Ibn Abbas would say that the Prophet ﷺ used to have a container that was just for a jar of kuhl that he used to have with him, that he would apply to his eyes every single night. 3 times in this eye and 3 times in that eye. 3 times in the right eye, 3 times in the left eye. So we don't have anything authentic that the Prophet ﷺ had a special jar that he used to always do this with. That's number 1. Number 2, we don't have anything authentic that he would do it every night. But as we're going to see from the coming narrations, he would do it before going to sleep. He would do it before going to sleep, but that doesn't mean it was every night. So the next hadith is also the hadith of Ibn Abbas. كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكتحل قبل أن ينام بالإثمد 3 في كل عين 3 في كل عين. Ibn Abbas says that the Prophet ﷺ would use ithmid as kuhl. He would use it in his eyes before going to bed, before going to sleep, 3 times in each eye. 3 times in each eye. And وقال يزيد بن هارون في حديثه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كانت له مكحلة يكتحل منها عند النوم 3 في كل عين. The narrator, one of the narrators in the chain, he says the Prophet ﷺ would have a jar for kuhl and he would apply it before going to sleep 3 times in each eye. Again, this part is not authentic. This part is not authentic. Now, we do know that the Prophet ﷺ would encourage us to do everything in odd numbers. Right? That is, we can authentically establish that. The Prophet ﷺ says, Inna Allah witrun yuhibbul witr. Allah is, single. Allah is one. And He loves doing things in odd numbers. Al-witr means odd numbers. Allah loves to do things. Allah loves that we do things in odd numbers. And there's another hadith. إِذَا اكْتَحَلَ أَحَدُكُمْ فَلْيَكْتَحِلْ وِتْرًا. If any one of you uses kuhl, then let him do it in an odd number of times. So 3 times in one and 3 times in the other. The next hadith is the hadith of Jabir. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عليكم بالإثمد عند النوم فإنه يجلو البصر وينبت الشعر. You should use ithmid before going to sleep, for it clears the vision and causes the eyelashes to grow. So again, this is reaffirming what was mentioned in the previous narrations. And the scholars say that, first of all, if you want it to really help, then do it in this way, before going to bed. Before going to bed means that the greatest effect will be if you do it at that time. Not that you can't do it at any other time. You can. But, if you want to really have an effect, do it before going to bed. And do it 3 times in each eye. And the benefit, as mentioned in the hadith, that it clears the vision. Meaning, sometimes your vision becomes foggy, right? It clears that. It clears anything that is obscuring your vision. Also, it causes the eyelashes to grow. The eyelashes, Allah has given us these eyelashes to protect us and to protect our eyes. Right? And the fact that we're always blinking, that is to protect our eyes. If our eyes were always open, particles and, harmful substances would go into our eyes. Likewise, if we didn't have eyelashes, dirt and other things will go into our eyes. So when the Prophet ﷺ is saying it'll cause the eyelashes to grow, that's a good thing. And we shouldn't think that this is something, something that is specific to women. That women have long eyelashes and it gives beauty to them. Therefore, why should I want that? Right? The purpose of that is not for beautification, but as we mentioned here, right? There are medical and health benefits to it. The next hadith is the hadith of Ibn Abbas. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن خير أكحالكم الإثمد يجلو البصر وينبت الشعر. The same thing. The best of your kuhl is ithmid. It clears the vision and causes the eyelashes to grow. And finally, the last hadith is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عليكم بالإثمد فإنه يجلو البصر وينبت الشعر. The same thing. Apply ithmid, for it clears the vision and causes the eyelashes to grow. So as you can see, more than one companion is narrating the same words. So these words are authentic, right? But the other words, the other narrations, the additional narrations that were adding other things like, doing it every night or having a jar for it, this is not authentically attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. But what is authentically attributed to him is that he would do it before going to bed, or he would advise to do that. He would advise to do that, and he mentioned the benefits of it. And he specifically mentioned the benefits of one kind, and that is al-ithmid. And this was a kind that existed in his time, and it exists until today. Al-ithmid exists even today. If you were to go to, Muslim countries, they sell it. If you were to go to, places where they sell perfume and other things, they sell this kind of kuhl. However, you have to be careful that you buy something that is pure, because they say that some of the ones that are being sold in the market have lead in them, and lead is very harmful for the eyes. Lead is something very harmful for the eyes, and perhaps they add some other things in it. So you have to be careful to get the pure ithmid. The pure ithmid. And it comes in two colors. It comes in black and red. It comes in black and red. But just make sure to get the pure ithmid. And, as we can see, it is from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it falls under what is known as at-tibb al-nabawi, the prophetic medicine, for people who are having problem with their eyes, or to make your eyes stronger, we should use it. And Allah knows best. The next chapter is on the clothing of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we will begin next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى اللهم وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.